Good morning, good afternoon and good evening and welcome back to Jamie Photography. So in this video we're going to look at black and white. I do like a bit of black and white and I can show you how we can really bring the drama into the scene and give a scene quite a lot of depth. So this is the Basilica in Montmartre in Paris. Shot it earlier this year. The starting image is here. This is a raw image taken with a Sony A7R4. You'll find this raw image down below in the comments, so feel free to download and follow along. All I'd ask is you honor my copyright, and if you do choose to share your adjusted image of this photograph on social media, then please just give credit to Jamie Mathlin. If you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join me on my adventure here on YouTube. And if you do like the video, please click like. And I really do appreciate comments and questions and points that are raised. I try to answer all of them, so look forward to hearing from you. Okay, let's get started. So first thing I always do, as you probably know, is I go down to transform to look at the perspective with my images. I want them to be right, and generally I go straight to guided, but in this case I'm hopeful that auto will work quite well. So I'm going to click auto. Actually, it's brought the verticals upright. It's made the building perspective correct as far as I can see, so I'm happy with that. So next thing I'm going to do here is just go up and bring down the highlights a little bit, just to see what level of sky that we have to play with. We have quite a good sky there, so highlights all the way down. And I'm just going to bring the shadows up just a little bit, maybe about 30, just to see. Yeah, I'm happy with that as well. I think we should do the denoise function, even though this is shot at ISO 200. I think if I zoom in, let's go into 400, no 300. Let's have a look. Yep, and you can see there is a little bit of noise there. I mean, we're at 300%, so with all fairness, that's to be expected. ISO 200. So let's go to denoise. So in detail, click denoise. It will just load that module up. Now, in this case, the noise is not severe, so I'm just going to back that down to 50%. You've got the before and the after. You can see the improvement. So I'm just going to enhance that now, and that should improve this noise situation. But as I say, you're at 300%. If you're at 100%, you probably wouldn't notice it. But once we start pushing the shadows more, I think it will become obvious that there might have been a bit of noise there. So that's done, and I have to say, yeah, it looks really good. These new AI features from Adobe are spectacularly good. So let's just go back to fit. So we'll go back there. So we have no noise. We have a relatively balanced image here. It's all within the histogram, so happy with that. I think we need to go over to Photoshop now, just to tidy a few things up. This person here and this sort of little kiosk here that I think we just need to remove. That's not very pretty. So let's right click and then edit in, and then I'm still using Adobe Photoshop Beta because that's still the only one that has the generative fill function, which is masterful at removing things in a shot. So here we are inside Photoshop. So just going to zoom in here. We're in the zoom function. As you can see, we're in zoom, and I've got it set to positive, and you can just click your mouse to zoom in. But of course, if you hold down the Option or Alt key and then click, it will zoom out. So you can zoom in and out easily there. You can also hold down the Option or Alt key and just wheelie your mouse if you want to zoom in and out. That's also very useful. So how are we going to get rid of this? Now, I think we're tempted to just do the generative fill to remove it. So let's do that. Let's go to the lasso tool, and let's select the polygonal lasso tool, which allows us to draw straight lines. So I can literally just draw lines around to make a selection. So I'm just going to come down here. We'll go all the way down to the bottom here to the top of this step. I'm going to come across. I think we'll stick to just the bits that we want to remove. So I'm just going to come back up here. We'll do a close sort of close crop, if you like, with this selection so that we can see if it can identify exactly what we're trying to remove, which is this cream colored kiosk here. So we'll just do that. So we're back round. So let's go generative fill. Let's not type anything into the box, just click generate and allow it to send the information to Adobe, process that information on the servers, and then send the information back. Wow, as always, it's very, very impressive. I'm going to try the remove tool. You can get to that in the spot healing brush J, and it's the second one down, remove tool. You need to be on the background for that, and what we can do is we can just paint over the bits that we don't want, and there we go, and hopefully the remove tool can calculate what needs to be done. That's still there, so it's not as easy to get rid of that one there. No, it doesn't want to touch that. That's probably part of the generative fill layer. So let me just bring those two together. So I've selected both using the shift key, and now it's one layer. So I'll come down there. Yep, there we go. So let's remove this red chain that's on the fence there, and let's remove the remainder of this table here just by painting over it. And you notice that the remove tool keeps the fence lines in. I think that's very, very impressive. I'm just going to take this line out here. As you can see, it keeps it there. So there's some people in there. Let's see if we can remove the people. Let's just try that with the remove tool. And then just go around the outside, overlapping just slightly, and then there we go. Very good indeed. So same again on this person, and fill in the middle. That's done. And this little child here, let's just remove her as well. Yep, excellent. Okay, so left with this lady here and these people over here. So we can try the remove tool. Let's do that. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger by using the square brackets to the left of the return key. I'm just going to trace round her to see if we can remove her with the remove tool. If not, we will use generative fill tool. But look at that, absolutely brilliant. Let's remove these people here as well, and this one, very good. Now I don't know how it will do it removing the sign, so we'll try the sign. So we're going to just come down here and go around the sign. Now it does have those window balconies behind it, so let's see if it can compute them, and it can. Absolutely excellent. So let's try again with the remove tool, just to remove this bit of fencing that we've got here in the generator, and let's see if it can figure out what to put in its place here as well. You know, exceptionally good. Little sign on the edge of the screen, and I'll take that lantern out. So that's fine. Okay, so let's just have a look around to see if there's anything else that we want to remove. Another kiosk over this side. Let's try the remove tool for all of this little kiosk here. Let's see if it can figure out what needs to be done. That's pretty good. So I'm holding down the space bar just to move the screen around. I think we can zoom back out. So let's just come back out from there. A little bit of a mark on the stone there. Just get rid of that. So zooming back out. So I think we're happy. We've tidied the image up, got it where we want it to be. So we'll send it back into Lightroom, File, Close, Save. And I click File, Close, Save so that it doesn't stay open in Photoshop. No need to use system memory in the background because we're going back to Lightroom here. So let's zoom out again. There we go. So there's the image tidied up. Happy with that. and we're going to relight this scene and turn it into a black and white. So first thing I'm going to do is drop the exposure. So we're going to come down about minus, maybe even more, minus 2.5 I think, stop, so it's quite dark. And then we're going to relight the face of the basilica as though that there's a moon in the sky over here, and we're going to light the sky up. So I'm going to go to masks. I'm going to take a radial gradient, and we're going to pop a radial gradient. I'm just going to bring the feather down to 0 there. I'm just going to pop a radial gradient coming in from that side. So we'll bring up the exposure there, bring down the blue, just a little bit of blue, more contrast. It's very good. I don't want it on the building, so I'm going to subtract the sky, and then I'm going to click invert. There we go. So it's just lighting up the sky. I want to create the same level of effect on the reflection on the cobbles down here. So I'm going to click on that, right click, duplicate the mask. I'm going to select that and bring it down here. Make it a little bit smaller, bring it across the scene there a little bit. Then I'm going to bring up the exposure. Just add a little bit of blue in there. That looks nice, cutting across the scene there. And that's the reflection from the sky. Let's bring up the contrast a little bit, and let's bring up a little bit of clarity to make those stones pop. I think it's a little bit bright, so I'm just going to take it back just a little bit there. There we go. Now, I also want to light up the highlights on the building. Now, there's a number of ways we can do this. One of my favorite ways is to create a new object mask, take a brush, and take the leading edges that are light with the object brush, like so. Yeah. And then effectively we can also add another object brush, and we can do the same with the face of this one. And it will select that, and then maybe we can add another object, and we can just come down the edge there and pick that one up as well, and then add another object, and I'm just going to run down the side of the building. There we go, just all the way down there. So what it does is it sort of selects, it didn't pick that bottom bit up, but it sort of selects the bits that we want there. So what I'm also going to do now is subtract a brush. I'm going to have quite low flow, but really high feather. And I'm just going to go around the inner edge of this mask, just to sort of soften it up a little bit. So let's bring the flow up a little bit more, just so we can soften that edge there. I'll turn the auto mask off. There we go. So I'm just softening that edge away. So make the brush a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to come round the edge of that object selection up that left hand side. So what we're doing is we've sort of got this gradient of a mask that's just sort of picking up the leading edges, and it gives us a soft effect. So I'm not going to have it there because that's not where we want it, and I'm just going to soften that out into there. Let's make that a little bit bigger. That's it, just soften that in there. Just take away the rear side of the dome. That's it. Let's add another object. We can get this leading edge here. There we go. I'm just going to go back to the subtraction brush, and then just soften that edge as well. So I think what we do need to do is have a harder brush. So subtract a brush with quite a hard edge, sorry, lots of flow, quite a hard edge, and just take out that little bit there that's overlapped. That's it. We'll subtract another brush with reasonable flow, lots of feather, and just soften that edge again. There we go, just softening those edges in there. We could also add a brush using the auto mask function and having good feather, having quite a bit of flow, we can also pick up on these sort of leading edges here as we go across. I'm going to just go across there as well. There's a little bit there that needs to be done. Maybe this area here. I'm going to bring a bit of light along the top of there and onto the steps. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Just going to back the flow off a little bit more, and we're just going to put a little bit more information in here to be lightened, and these horsemen as well. They can be lit as well. A little bit of light down there. So what we're aiming to do effectively is just build a mask that gives us the light that we need in the areas that we need it, so that when we make adjustments, I'm just going to put a little bit in there as well. When we make adjustments, it brings the light in. So you can see we've built quite a complex mask using the object tool, using the brushes, subtraction and plus, to build that in. And I think I'm just going to add in a little bit more on that dome there, because that main dome is the main element of this shot. So we'll just blend that in there like so. Right, now what we do is we go over to our sliders and we select exposure, and we start to bring up the exposure, and you can see it starts to put quite an edge of light on this building. It's quite impressive actually. We need a bit more over here, so I'm just going to, I've still got that brush active, so I'm just going to brush that in there as well, just to give us a little bit more light in some of those areas. There we go, on those pillars as well. And I just want to make sure that we're not bleeding over into the sky too much. So we're going to make sure that on this whole mask we're going to subtract the sky. All right, so we don't get too much around those edges there. So let's just have a look at the mask. There we go. And that's the sort of effect that we're getting. Probably want a little bit more on this dome at the top, so I'm just going to go in there and add another brush, and I'm just going to bring this up a bit more as well. And now we've got that positive exposure, we're able to just sort of build against it and build the light onto the building as though it's being illuminated from that side. And because we've got the minus sky, we're not bleeding over into the sky area, which is also very, very helpful. So let's just get those a bit brighter. There we go. Put a little bit of light on these as well whilst we're here, just to make sure that they all look okay. A bit more on those steps. Right, I'm happy with that. Now we do need to put this light, we need to switch this light on. So I'm going to create a new mask, go to radial gradient. I'm going to pull a small radial gradient out over this lantern, and I'm going to zoom in so that we can see this lantern nice and close. Use the space bar to move around. Put the center of the radial gradient in the center of the lantern. Bring up the exposure, add in a bit of color just to balance it off with a little bit of magenta. That looks quite nice, but now we need to make sure we remove the mask. So we're going to subtract a brush. We're going to have the flow at 100% and the feather quite small. We're going to go in nice and close onto this one because there's a lot of detail to get into. So, and in most of this is not going to be shift, click, shift. Most of this is going to be drawn by hand around the outside of the light. There we go. There's all these little details, and we will not go over the metalwork here because we want that to illuminate with the light itself. So so coming in there, we can just get that bit of light in there. These little details, doesn't matter if you go over those because they're probably in shadow anyway. So just coming around there, just filling that in. And to be honest with you, this is all the easy bit. We've got to get inside the lantern frame to finish this one off. So let's see if we can do that. So we've got a smaller brush. That's it. And we're just going to come in here. And we're going to follow the glass around. There we go. Around the steelwork again. And we'll just fill in that little difference there. Over there. Now, having the auto mask on does help when you're dealing with these sort of details, so you don't automatically paint over everything that's to the left or to the right of you. I'm just going to bring the feather up, turn the auto mask off, and I'm just going to go 100% feather actually. With a little brush here, I'm just going to run that edge in so that we get a feather on that edge, so it doesn't look quite so pixely. There we go. To do this lantern here, there we go. Just going to cut that bottom off and smooth that out. Make it look the same. Here we go. And same on the edge of these edge of this steel work here. I'm just going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Just run around the edge of there. Let's reduce the pixelation just a little bit. I'm going to do the same here, slightly bigger brush, just paint around there and just blend that edge away using the feather part of the brush. Right, that looks pretty good. Make my brush bigger, get rid of my feather, flow still at 100, paint the rest of it out. It's going to go underneath this illuminated area here. Make sure that's done. That's it. Come around there. So that's quite a complicated lantern, that one, to be fair. So let's make sure we've got rid of everything. Let's hover over the mask. It shows you what's there. It's a little bit missing there. We just need to press down the optional Alt key and just build a smaller brush. Just build it in there just a little bit more. Hover over a little bit more. There you go, just building that back in. So you get a if I've selected a negative brush and I hold down the optional Alt key, then it's a positive brush. If I've selected a positive brush and I hold down the optional Alt key, then it's a negative brush. So it just allows you to go from one to the other. So let's see how that looks when I click on this radial gradient, right click, duplicate the mask, and then we can put the light bulb inside by making this mask smaller. There we go. So let's zoom back out. Bear in mind we were at 400% there. Let's just get rid of the mask a second just to see. Yeah, that looks okay. Now we need to put some light underneath this. So let's go into 100%. And then let's go to the lower area just below the light here. I'm going to take a new mask, a new radial gradient. We're going to take quite a large circle there, put it at the base of the lantern itself, and then just bring up the exposure until it looks about right. Add that bit of colour in that we need and offset that colour with a little bit of magenta. Just finishes it off nicely. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to zoom out again and let's just have a look to see how that fits. So that works quite well. I'm quite happy with that. I think we need to boost this, bring this down a little bit and boost this just a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, one of the real tips that I use for black and white is I always process in color. I never shoot just in black and white. And the reason for that is that I would like to use the colors that we have to emphasize the contrast in the black and white shot. So we can work on raising the color here. What I do want to do is I want to bring these horses up, identify these horses much more, these horsemen. So I'm going to go into a new mask, select object, and I'm just going to draw over, and it will select the horse there. And I'll do one at a time actually. Just going to bring up the exposure, add in some contrast, put in some clarity there. Bring up that exposure just a little bit more so they're really standing out. You see that? It's looking really good. Let's just zoom in. Yeah, that's looking nice. Let's do the same with this one. So create a mask, object, brush a little bit smaller so I can actually find where it is. Now, because it's almost a silhouette, you end up with a really good, mask. Let's come around there, fill it in. And when I release, it will mask. There we go. Lovely. So we're going to bring that one up as well. Add in that bit of contrast that we want. Add in that clarity. And I might even add in a bit of green here to make it a little bit greener, show the copper off a little bit more. So I'm just going to take the slider down slightly. There we go. That's looking good. Back the highlights off just a little bit. Open up the shadows just a little bit. Same with this one. I think we need to add in a little bit more shadow being raised so they stand out on the front of the building. That's great. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. I think we need to lighten this area down here a little bit. So I'm going to create another radial gradient, and we're going to pull one in down here, sort of bringing light into this corner down here. Just going to bring that up there, maybe add a little bit of color to that as there was light coming in from that side. And I also want to light up the basilica here as well, just again to give it more information to play with. So I'm just, again, radial gradient, just going to pop that in there. It will brighten up the light, so we will need to keep an eye on that. So just want to bring that light down just a little bit. There we go. And that bit of sky over there has been illuminated by this radial, but that's okay because we get light coming through from behind. Let's just select the sky, so new mask, sky, and then we're just going to add in a whole chunk of contrast into that sky. Bring down the highlights a little bit, and then I'm going to put some clarity into that sky. There we go. That looks really good. So I think we're getting pretty close to going to black and white. Just want to light the front of this bollard up. It's a bit dark down this corner. So what we can do is create another radial gradient here. And we can take that radial gradient here and sort of apply it along the front edge of that stone. So if I bring up the exposure here, you get a lot of light here, okay, which we don't want, but we do want this face to be illuminated. Instead, I'm just going to subtract a brush. Going to take quite a high flow, quite a low feather. We're going to zoom in. So we've got the subtraction brush. We can click, shift click to get that edge line there. Just going to run up and around the edge of the stone here. Just make sure that's all covered. I'm going to go down and run around the bottom here. Make my brush bigger, so we can just make sure that we've got rid of that leading edge. Let's go back to the fit screen, and then we can just take out the rest of that radial. So you're just getting this sort of extra bit of detail, if you like, on the front there, which is giving it a little bit more to play with. So now let's go over to black and white. So to do that, we're going to bring up the saturation. Okay, quite a lot of saturation there, plus 50. We're going to bring up the vibrance, probably by about the same, plus 50. Going to increase the contrast, and we're just going to brighten the whole scene slightly. There we go. I'm going to bring down the highlights, and I'm going to open up the shadows a bit more. And I'm going to look at my whites, so I'm going to hold down the optional Alt key and move the slider until we see some white there. That's fine. And I'm going to take the black and just bring that back so we got some black coming into the shot. That's good. So you've got very contrasty shot. Make it a bit brighter. Now, we've messed about with it, added in all these things. I'm not going to do the clarity just yet. Let's have a look once we go into black and white. So I'm going to go up to the black and white selector here at the top of the basics function. I'm going to click black and white. Now I'm going to take the clarity slider and bring it up. There we go. That really does look good. I don't want to overdo the textures, so I'm actually going to back the textures off just a little bit, because otherwise it can get a bit too, again, HDR, a bit too much contrast, and it can be quite difficult to sort of get the shot right. So I'm just bringing that clarity up more and more and more just to see where we're at. I think we're probably going to end up around about probably 45 is where I want to be. Textures at -10, so happy with that. I think we can bring up the highlights a little bit. We'll take them down. Let's have a look. Go down, come back up. Yeah, I think we're about -20 there. Open up the shadows just a little bit more. And I think just to finish off, I'm going to put in a post-crop vignette. So go down to effects, give a minus number there. So I'm going to go -25. And you think, wow, that's a lot. But go to the feather slider whilst you're here and just bring that feather slider out. I'm going to back that off just a little bit. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to brighten the whole thing up a little bit more. Bring down the highlights to offset that additional exposure. And, you know, I think we are done. So I'm just going to load that up, have a look. Okay, I'm happy with that shot. I think that's come out very well. It's nice black and white. Never too sure whether it's day or night. So anyway, I will leave it there. And until the next video, bye-bye for now.